All right, let's talk about big ideas. We all have them, right? Especially when it comes to the economy. But there's a huge gap between a good idea and an idea that's actually, true. So today, we're diving into how we can tell the difference. I mean, really think about it. How do we actually know? If you have a hunch about what's driving inflation, or why unemployment is up, or what moves the stock market, how do you test that against the absolute chaos of the real world? This is the fundamental question for any economist. And it might seem impossibly complicated, right? But the good news is, we're not just flying blind here. Economists have actually built a powerful toolkit designed specifically to cut through all that complexity and get to some real answers. And that toolkit is called econometrics. Put simply, it's a method for taking a big idea, a hypothesis, and basically putting it on trial. The evidence, that's the real-world data. And the verdict? Well, that's whether the data actually supports the idea or not. So you can think of econometrics as the bridge that connects a cool theory in someone's head to a reality that we can actually test. But, okay, how do you cross that bridge? How does an economist actually go from just having a question to finding a credible answer? We're going to break this down into a three-stage journey. First, we'll look at the core method that every researcher uses. Then we'll get into this fascinating hidden force that our source calls the noise. And finally, we'll see how it all comes together to solve a massive real-world puzzle.
All right, let's jump into stage one, the method.
At the very heart of all this is a really simple but powerful cycle. It's a continuous learning loop. First, you plan, which means you form your hypothesis. Then you do the work. You go out and gather the data. Next, you study that data using all those powerful tools. And then crucially, you learn from the results. And that learning, it feeds right back into your next plan. It's this constant, never-ending cycle of discovery. But, just having the data isn't enough. Because now you hit stage two. And you come face to face with this powerful, unseen force. To get to the truth, you have to understand the concept of noise. Think of it this way. In any set of data, you've got two things going on. There's the signal, that's the pure economic relationship you're actually trying to measure. But mixed right in with it is the noise. That's all the other random, unpredictable stuff that can totally hide the real signal. The entire job of an econometrician is to filter out all that noise, so the signal can finally come through loud and clear. And hey, this isn't just some beginner's concept. As Carlos Mendez, the source for this explainer, points out, really getting your head around this idea of noise is the key. He says it's absolutely essential for grasping even the most advanced ideas in economics. It's not just a step in the process, it's like a superpower. Okay, so you've got your method, and you know how to handle the noise. So what? Where does that actually get you? Well, it lets you move on to stage three, taking on a massive, real-world puzzle. And here's a big one. What really drives the stock prices of America's biggest companies, the ones in the S&P 500? Is it interest rates? Is it company profits? Is it just what investors are feeling that day? How would you even begin to find the true signals in all of that noise? I mean, just stop and think about the scale of that noise for a second. We are talking about 500 of the world's most influential companies. Every single one has its own CEO, its own problems, its own wins. A single unexpected tweet about one of them can send ripples through the entire market. All of that, all happening at once, it creates a staggering amount of noise. And this is where it all comes together. To solve a puzzle this big, researchers run that learning cycle over and over. They use incredibly sophisticated techniques to filter out the noise, things like daily political drama or social media hype, so they can isolate the true signals. They might find that over the long haul, things like corporate earnings and national interest rates are the powerful signals that really matter, while a surprise CEO resignation is just temporary noise. This is how they find structure in the middle of chaos.
So that leaves us with one last thing to think about. We've been talking about the economy, but this idea of signal versus noise is everywhere. It's in the news headlines you read, the health studies you see, even your own social media feed. So the question is, what noise might be quietly influencing the data and the signals that you trust every single day?